This van here is our 2014 Honda Odyssey minivan. We purchased this just about 2 months ago, used, with about 197,000 miles on it. And everything worked great on the van until recently. This door back here, the sliding door, has started to have some issues. Now these issues are a little bit different than what I have seen in most videos, so I'll walk you through all of our symptoms and then maybe once I pull everything apart, what I find. So for starters, here on the dash, we have the slide door button right there, or light that is lit up, showing that there is an issue. The dealership just told me, hey, you have the light on the dash.
Technician 125 got you in for your sliding door issue. You do have a light on the dash at the moment. Went ahead and checked those codes for you, and you just have one code in your system, which is a B2037. And we went through that diagnostic for you, and it's actually recommending replacing the rear latch inside of the door, the rear sliding motor on the inside of this door, and we actually also recommend replacing the control unit with that as well. Once you complete those items, then we would know if the car is completely fixed, or if not, if it still has the light on after replacing those items. It could be an underlying wiring issue, but we wouldn't know that until we actually have good known parts in the vehicle at the time. But other than that, you're all up to date. Thank you for choosing Westboro Honda.
Yeah, thanks. That's why I brought it into the dealership originally and said, the door doesn't work and the light on the dash is on. Tell me what's wrong with it. So now that we've established that there is a light on the dash, I have tried a few things with pulling the fuses for 45 seconds and going between off and on and putting the fuses back in. None of that worked. The passenger side door does work properly. That one opens and it closes. And this driver one also opened and closed fine until it didn't. When we push this button, we get nothing. Nothing. When we pull this lever, we get nothing. And when you push the button on the inside, we also get nothing. What we do get is this. When I pull this handle and I try to open it, it stops right there, which leads me to believe that it is the fuel door sensor, because the fuel door sensor, notice the consistent beeping, the fuel door sensor, if it senses that the fuel door is open, it stops this to not damage your vehicle. Notice it consistently beeps, still beeping, until I pull this and manually open it further. Now once I get about halfway back, it stops, and I can fully latch it in this position. It doesn't move, it is latched in place, and we're good. However, when I go to close it now, and I pull the handle, it gets right there, and it stops, and it beeps. Until I pull it past that. I have to pull the handle, pull past, and then I close it, and we're good. So the mechanism slides fine, the latch works fine. What I need to find out is if the buttons are sending a signal back to the motor, and so I'm going to pull the inside of the van apart. So if you're at home following along with your Odyssey minivan, or you just want to watch the process, step one is to remove the sill plate here. We'll pop that up from the middle towards the outsides. We'll set that aside. We will then remove this rubber gasket here, the door jamb gasket, and we will take it off up until about this area up here in the top. Sorry for the lighting. The sun is actually out today. So we'll remove that from the bottom up. All right, now that we've done those two steps, that took us about 60 seconds. Come back around here. The next goal is to get this whole panel removed. We will start by pulling this strip, which goes down here towards the back of the vehicle. We'll get that strip pulled off to isolate the tabs there. and we'll just kind of start pulling. I know that it connects to these top pieces in some form or fashion, and it's different on each van, so I don't remember this one exactly, but we will start to pull and dismantle and get things out. This is a rear fuse box back here. If you want to put a screwdriver in right there, you can in fact put that in, pop it out. That's just another handle that you can get your hand onto. Don't just yank, but try and finesse it. Try and be a little gentle. It's your van. Quick note, we did have to take the rear sill plate off that sits kind of over and down. You got two little unscrew things, one on each side. You kind of pull it out and then pull it up. You do have 4 push pins that go into this hole here, this hole, so on and so forth. So you do want to make sure that is coming up in some form or fashion, but you got to go out, then up. There you go. Let's mosey to this thing now. So much easier than I thought, much easier than on the previous one. As I was pulling out, I was able to push down these little tabs right here. There we go. There's a little tab there, and there's a little one here that locks in. And so I was able to just kind of pull off and around and out from around this guy. It's also pulled out from this. So when I pulled out originally, it started coming out, but then I was able to push this piece in, that disconnected, and then this, and then we take out the little roundy screw guy back there, and then now we should be pretty much free. We got a little bit of connectivity here, so we can try and work that thing free. We'll figure that out and then show you what that is, because this piece should just come right off at that point. All right, so there you go. A minute later, we've got this connector here, which is kind of clipping in, and I was able to push it that way, popped out, and now I was able to get this clear, and so now this whole thing should just come right out. I'm going to remove it with both hands, and then we'll start looking at the insides. So quick note, I did go ahead and put this weather stripping back in place, as well as the weather stripping that's up there around the front of the door. This van is still well usable, even when we're testing. So I'm going to get one of my kids to come and just help me push the button up there for the open and close button, because what I want to do is come in here. We've got the motor assembly here. The cable for the front comes through this, and then the back comes through here, and that's kind of the push-pull mechanism of opening and closing. And what I need to evaluate is this thing getting a signal? Is the motor bad? I don't think the motor's bad, but I want to find out, is the motor bad? I also can evaluate if the signals are coming forward and backwards. This right here is the sensor. This is the cable connection for the sensor that's in the fuel tank. So I can measure this for continuity by removing this cable, connecting onto it, and then opening and closing the fuel door. Obviously, I have to have this sliding door closed to be able to test that. Anyway, I can come back here. I've got my multimeter. I'm just going to run it on continuity, and then also maybe some power, get a power lead, and then test for negative signals on the switches, because I'm pretty sure they run negative switches. So that's the next step in the process. I'll let you know what I find out and what I need to replace in this setup to work.
4 to 6 weeks later.
All right, guys, we're going to catch back up on this van. It has been many, many weeks later. A lot of troubleshooting, a lot of poking and prodding, and where originally I thought that this was going to be a motor issue, the dealership had told me that it was going to be, they needed to replace the motor, the PCM, and which is like a control module, and something else on the sliding door, the rear latch. Then they could evaluate if it was a cable issue, is what they said, maybe an electronics issue. Well, I know that there's very little cabling that's going to go bad inside of a car. The dealership, when they make cars, they don't go bad that often. And so I didn't expect it to be a cable issue. So I had pulled apart all of these panels. We had all of the panels out here and drove around like that for quite some time. The panel out. I even had the door off. But let me show you something else that came up in my process of when I was troubleshooting things that clued me into the next place that I wanted to look, which was the solution. So we're now inside the car. We're looking at the rear sliding driver door, so driver rear sliding door, whatever you want to call it. And we've got a speaker down there, and that speaker continued to work the entire time. The window continued to work the entire time, but the motor, the electronics of the latch and the motor were not working. Now, that wasn't working from any of the switches up front or from the lever here, which you would scoot back and forth. Now, another thing that stopped working in this process was the door lock itself. The door lock, if I can do this without shining myself in the eyeballs, this is the actual door lock motor right here. You have two wires that come into it, and that's a quick little pin that pops off, pin connector that pops off, and you've got two wires right here. Now I could manually lock and unlock the door. That still works, but the motor itself was not firing. So what I did is I disconnected this plug and I tossed power and ground to this motor, just tapped it, and the motor worked. It went one way, I flipped the wires, it went the other way. That confirmed to me that the motor was fine and this would obviously move with it. So that was good. Well, then I started to test the wires themselves. I'd got no wire connectivity or pulsing here at the wires themselves for the motor. So that led me to believe that somewhere along the way, the wires were not getting, the signal was not getting here into the door. Well, lo and behold, what I found is that down here we have a moving part. All of the wires scoot through this little connector. They come in right here at the door. There we go. They come in right at the door and they go just underneath this piece and they're held in place with a 10mm bolt. Let me show you what this cable looks like on either end. So here's the cable. We have this piece that sits inside the car with a 10mm bolt through it. And you've got three plugs. They're gonna have a bunch of grease. It's dielectric grease because in case this gets wet, the connections don't short out. The grease keeps the moisture and water out. And this thing sits inside the door. You've got two Phillips screws that go in there and three plugs on this side. Now, when you look at your wires, you've got just a bunch of green wires, less than distinct. So you have to count pins on the wires. Same thing on this side. And when you look at the schematics online, it shows where you have colored wires coming in that convert to green, and then green converts back to something else. So I was able to find the pins for the lock wires, which are right here in this, they're in this plug here. And I was able to find the lock wires and meter them properly on the vehicle side, and then notice that they did not traverse through here and meter properly on that side. So for a few dollars off of eBay, I think it was about 75 bucks, I found a used part off of a wrecked Honda Odyssey, and I've now just finished the installation. And before I joyfully pack this vehicle up, tidy it up, and just start enjoying all of the amenities of it again, I did want to show you that in fact, here we have the door lock button, which works again. Success. Ah, that's a good feeling. And when I come in here, when I hit the lock button, you're gonna be right next to it. You may or may not hear it. Well, just trust me, it works. I'm so stoked that it's working now. We've got the automatic door opening and closing again. All the components of this door are gonna work. No crazy beeping. Hey, listen, I'm not making many videos right now about automotive stuff, but if this video has helped you out in any way and given you a place to look for some obscure issue with your generation, whatever Honda Odyssey this is, give this video a thumbs up. In fact, give it a thumbs up just for all of the work to make a video, but give it a thumbs up if it's been helpful to you. If you like vehicles, I do put some video stuff out. Obviously, if you look at the rest of my videos, they're mostly about sports, fitness, biking, things like that. But if you're into BMX, hey, come along for the ride. We'd love to have you on the channel. But that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.